The Pripet marshes, or Pripyat marshes, are one of Europe's largest wetland areas, stretching across modern Belarus, Ukraine, and parts of Poland. This inhospitable landscape of dense forests, swamps, and rivers has long been considered a potential cradle of the Slavic people. But why here? Why would such a seemingly uninviting region play a pivotal role in the emergence of a people who would later spread across half of Europe? The answer may lie in its natural defenses. During the turbulent migrations of ancient peoples, the Pripet marshes offered an almost impenetrable refuge, a haven where early Slavic tribes could endure invasions and pressures from more powerful neighbors like the Germanic, Scythian, and Sarmatian tribes. Archaeological findings in the region, such as rudimentary tools and evidence of early agricultural activity, suggest that the inhabitants of the marshes lived in small, tight-knit communities, subsisting off the land. These communities were isolated yet resilient, laying the groundwork for what would later become a distinctly Slavic identity. Linguistic evidence offers another clue to the Slavs' mysterious origins. The Slavic languages belong to the Indo-European family, but they stand apart, forming their own unique branch. The shared vocabulary across Slavic languages for words related to agriculture, rivers, and forests suggests that the early Slavs were deeply connected to the natural world, a people of farmers, hunters, and gatherers. The first written mentions of a people resembling the Slavs come from Byzantine historians in the 6th century AD. Writers like Procopius and Jordanes describe them as Sklaveni, or Antes, living in the lands between the Vistula River and the Dniester. They were noted for their egalitarian social structures, primitive dwellings, and fierce independence. But these accounts raise a question. Were the Slavs newcomers to these lands, or had they been there for millennia? Some scholars propose that the Slavs may have emerged from the prehistoric corded ware culture, which spanned northern and eastern Europe around 3000 to 2000 BC, or the later Lusatian culture of the Bronze and Iron Ages. These cultures left behind burial mounds, pottery, and tools that show intriguing parallels to later Slavic artifacts. The origins of the Slavs remain a puzzle, with several competing hypotheses vying for acceptance. One theory, often referred to as the Pripet marshes hypothesis, suggests that the Slavs originated in the swampy regions of present-day Belarus and Ukraine. This idea is supported by the earliest accounts of their settlements, which describe them as inhabiting dense forests and river valleys, terrains well suited to the Pripet region. Another hypothesis points to the Carpathian basin as the true homeland of the Slavs. Archaeological evidence from this area, such as fortified hilltop settlements and distinctive pottery styles, indicates the presence of a Proto-Slavic culture as early as the Bronze Age. Some even argue that the Slavs may have been influenced by or descended from the Dacians or Thracians, ancient peoples who inhabited the Carpathians before being assimilated or displaced. A third, more controversial theory places the Slavic homeland in the Pontic steppe, the vast grasslands stretching from Ukraine to Kazakhstan. This steppe region was a crossroads of migration and conflict for millennia, home to the horse-riding nomads of the Yamnaya culture, who are often credited with spreading Indo-European languages. Could the Slavs have been an offshoot of this early Indo-European wave, adapting to a more sedentary lifestyle in the forests and rivers of Eastern Europe? While the written records of the Slavs are sparse, the ground beneath our feet tells a story that stretches back thousands of years. Archaeological evidence provides us with critical clues to the origins of the Slavs, yet this evidence is as enigmatic as the people themselves. One of the most significant links to the early Slavs comes from the Lusatian culture, which flourished in Central and Eastern Europe during the late Bronze Age, 1300 to 500 BC. This culture is known for its fortified settlements, intricate pottery, and cremation burials. These burial practices, in particular, are echoed in later Slavic traditions, suggesting a possible cultural continuity. But there's a catch. The Lusatian culture wasn't exclusively Slavic. It encompassed a wide range of peoples, and its geographical reach overlapped with Germanic, Celtic, and even Baltic tribes. Could the Slavs have emerged from this melting pot, taking on unique characteristics as they spread eastward? By the 5th and 6th centuries AD, the Slavs began a dramatic expansion that would see them spread from the Vistula River in the west to the Dniester in the east, and eventually across much of Europe. This rapid movement raises one of the great mysteries of their history. Why did they suddenly leave their ancestral homelands? One theory suggests that external pressures forced the Slavs to migrate. The arrival of the Huns in the 4th century AD disrupted the balance of power in Eastern Europe, displacing many tribes and creating a domino effect of migrations. The Slavs, with their simple but effective agrarian economy, may have taken advantage of the chaos to claim new lands. Another possibility is population growth. Archaeological evidence indicates that early Slavic communities were highly adaptable, using slash-and-burn agriculture to clear forests and cultivate new lands. As their numbers grew, they may have been compelled to seek out fresh territory. But their migration wasn't just a story of conquest and displacement. The Slavs were remarkably skilled at assimilating other cultures. As they spread, they adopted new technologies, languages, and customs, blending them with their own traditions to create a diverse yet cohesive identity. While the Pripyat marshes are often considered the heartland of the Slavs, the Carpathian mountains may have played an equally crucial role in their origins. This rugged, forested region served as a natural fortress, shielding early Slavic tribes from invasions, while fostering a rich cultural exchange. The Carpathians were home to a wealth of natural resources, from fertile valleys to mineral-rich mountains. Archaeological sites in the region reveal evidence of early metalworking, suggesting that the inhabitants had access to trade routes connecting them to the Mediterranean and the steppes. Interestingly, the Carpathians are also steeped in folklore and mythology. Many Slavic legends speak of sacred mountains, mysterious caves, and enchanted forests, echoes of an ancient connection to the land that may have shaped their worldview. Could the Carpathians have been more than just a refuge? Could they have been the spiritual heart of the early Slavs? Another key to understanding the origins of the Slavs lies in their language. The Slavic languages are part of the Indo-European family, which includes Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit. This connection has led some researchers to suggest that the Slavs may have descended from the Proto-Indo-Europeans, a prehistoric people who spread their language and culture across Europe and Asia around 3000 BC. But here's where things get complicated. While the Indo-European roots of Slavic languages are undeniable, the Slavs also developed unique linguistic features that set them apart. For example, the Slavic word for god, bog, has no clear equivalent in other Indo-European languages, suggesting that the Slavs may have preserved elements of a pre-Indo-European substrate. This linguistic puzzle raises intriguing questions. Were the Slavs direct descendants of the Indo-Europeans, or did they emerge as a distinct group through interactions with other cultures in Eastern Europe? In recent years, advances in genetic research have provided new insights into the origins of the Slavs. Studies of ancient DNA suggest that the Slavs share a common ancestry with other Eastern European populations, including the Balts and Finnic peoples. Interestingly, genetic markers associated with the Slavs show a high degree of homogeneity, which supports the idea that they emerged from a relatively isolated population. This aligns with the Pripyat marshes hypothesis, where natural barriers may have helped preserve their genetic and cultural identity during the early stages of their development. However, genetics also reveals the complexities of Slavic migrations. As they spread across Europe, the Slavs intermarried with local populations, creating a diverse genetic tapestry that reflects their adaptability and openness to cultural exchange. The Slavs believed their world was governed by powerful deities, each representing aspects of the natural and spiritual world. At the top of their pantheon was Perun, the thunder god, a figure of order and strength, often depicted wielding a mighty axe or hammer. Opposing Perun was Velis, the god of chaos, cattle, and the underworld. Velis was a shapeshifter, a trickster who could transform into animals and move between realms, challenging Perun in an eternal cosmic struggle. And then there was Mokosh, the great mother goddess, embodying fertility, water, and the earth itself. She was revered as the protector of women, childbirth, and the cycles of nature. The duality between Perun and Veles, order versus chaos, sky versus earth, mirrors the balance the early Slavs sought to maintain in their lives. This mythological framework likely developed during their formative years in the forests and marshes, where survival depended on harmony with nature. For the early Slavs, the natural world was sacred. Rivers in particular played a central role in their cosmology. The Dnieper, Vistula, and Danube were more than just waterways. They were lifelines, symbols of purity, and conduits to the divine. Sacred groves were another cornerstone of Slavic spirituality. These hidden forest sanctuaries were places of worship where wooden idols of gods stood among ancient trees. Offerings of food, drink, and even animal sacrifices were made here to ensure bountiful harvests, protection, and balance in the natural world. One of the most intriguing aspects of early Slavic culture is their lack of monumental architecture. Unlike the Greeks and Romans, the Slavs did not build stone temples or leave behind inscriptions. Their sacred spaces were ephemeral, tied to the living landscape, a reflection of their intimate connection with the land. As the Slavs migrated, they carried their myths and customs with them, blending them with the traditions of the peoples they encountered. This cultural exchange enriched their identity, but also created regional variations. In the Balkans, Slavic mythology merged with the ancient traditions of the Thracians and Illyrians. In Central Europe, it absorbed elements of Celtic and Germanic folklore. Yet, despite these influences, the core of Slavic identity, its language, communal structure, and reverence for nature, remained remarkably consistent. This adaptability was key to the Slavs' success. Unlike many other migrating peoples, they did not conquer through brute force alone. Instead, they often integrated peacefully, forming alliances and intermarrying with local populations. This ability to adapt while preserving their unique identity is one of the great mysteries of Slavic history. The rise of Christianity in Eastern Europe brought profound changes to the Slavic way of life. Starting in the 9th century, Christian missionaries like Saint Cyril and Methodius began converting Slavic tribes, introducing a new religious framework that gradually replaced their ancient beliefs. However, the transition was not immediate. For centuries, elements of paganism persisted, often blending with Christian practices. Festivals like Kupala Night, originally a pagan celebration of the summer solstice, were reinterpreted as Christian feasts, but retained their older, nature-centric rituals. This fusion of old and new created a unique spiritual identity among the Slavs, where the echoes of their pagan past still resonate in modern traditions. Today, the Slavs are the largest ethno-linguistic group in Europe, encompassing more than 300 million people across dozens of nations. Their influence is woven into the fabric of European history, from the rise of powerful medieval states like Kievan Rus to the cultural contributions of modern Slavic nations. Yet, the origins of the Slavs remain shrouded in mystery. Were they shaped by the wetlands of the Pripyat marshes, the rugged terrain of the Carpathians, or the wide steppes of the Pontic region? Perhaps their story is not confined to one place, but is a testament to their resilience and adaptability, a people forged by the land and time. The story of the Slavs is not just a tale of migration and survival, it is a story of connection, of a people who found meaning in the rivers, forests, and mountains that surrounded them. Their origins may be ancient, but their legacy lives on, a testament to the enduring power of culture and identity.